the Alabama Cave, where people claim they heard their own funerals. In the northern corner of Alabama, where the foothills of the Appalachians rise out of the red clay, there is a cave. It is not marked on any tourist map. The locals do not speak of it willingly. The entrance is narrow, barely wide enough for a grown man to squeeze through, and it is hidden behind a curtain of kudzu and moss-covered rocks. But if you find it, and if you crawl inside, and if you make your way down the damp stone passage to the chamber at the heart of the hill, you will experience something that has haunted the people of this region for generations. You will hear music, faint, distant, echoing through the stone. A hymn. A funeral hymn, and if you listen closely, you will recognize the name being sung. The name of the person being mourned. It will be your name. This is the story of the Singing Cave of Colbert County, a place where the boundary between the living and the dead wears thin, a place where people have heard their own memorial services before they died, and a place where, according to those who have studied it, the cave does not just predict death, it invites it. The earliest written account of the Singing Cave comes from 1883. A farmer named Josiah Blake wrote in his journal that he had discovered a strange opening in the hillside while tracking a lost cow. He squeezed through the entrance and found a large underground room with walls that seemed to glow with a faint phosphorescent light. As his eyes adjusted to the darkness, he heard something that made the hair on his arms stand up. A choir. A full choir, singing a hymn he recognized from his own church. Abide with me. It was coming from the walls themselves. The sound was beautiful and terrible, and as he listened, he realized the choir was not just singing a random hymn. They were singing his name. Over and over. Josiah Blake. Josiah Blake. The Lord is calling Josiah Blake. He fled the cave in terror. He wrote in his journal that he had never been so afraid in his life. He also wrote that he believed the cave had marked him for death. 3 weeks later, Josiah Blake was kicked in the head by a mule and died instantly. His family held his funeral at the small church he had attended his entire life. The hymn they chose, at his wife's request, was Abide with Me. The cave claimed its first documented victim. It would not be the last. Over the decades, others have found the cave and heard the music. The stories follow a pattern. A person enters the chamber. They hear a song. They hear their name. They leave shaken, sometimes telling friends or family what they experienced. And within a month, sometimes within days, they are dead. Accidents, illnesses, sudden heart failure. The deaths are never violent, never suspicious. But they are always eerily timed. In 1924, a group of 4 teenagers from the town of Cherokee dared each other to enter the cave at midnight. 3 of them crawled inside. The 4th waited at the entrance, too scared to follow. He heard his friends scrambling down the passage. He heard their voices, muffled by stone. And then he heard them scream. They burst out of the cave minutes later, pale and shaking. They said the cave had sung to them, not a choir this time. A single voice. A woman's voice. It had sung a lullaby. A lullaby their mothers had sung to them as children. And then it had whispered their names, one by one, and said, "Come home." 3 weeks later, one of the teenagers fell from a hayloft and broke his neck. 2 months later, another drowned in the Tennessee River. The 3rd moved away with his family and was killed in a car accident within the year. The boy who had waited at the entrance was the only survivor. He lived to be 92. He never set foot near the cave again. And he told this story to anyone who would listen, hoping to warn them. He said the cave was not a natural formation. It was a mouth that sang. And it was always hungry. In 1971, a team of geologists from the University of Alabama surveyed the cave. They were not interested in ghost stories. They wanted to study the unusual acoustics that might explain the reports of phantom music. They set up equipment in the main chamber: microphones, tape recorders, seismic sensors. They waited. For the first 2 days, nothing happened. The cave was silent except for the drip of water and the occasional bat. The geologists were beginning to think the whole thing was a local legend with no basis in reality. On the third day, the equipment recorded something. At 4:13 am, while the team was asleep in their tents outside the cave, the microphones captured a sound. It was a voice, a male voice, deep and resonant, singing, not a random song. A specific song. One of the geologists, a man named Dr. Robert Halsey, recognized it when the recording was played back the next morning. It was his wedding song, the song he and his wife had danced to at their reception 10 years earlier. And then the voice spoke his name. Robert, Robert, it is time to come home. The recording lasted 4 minutes. The voice repeated his name 17 times. The team was shaken, but Dr. Halsey tried to dismiss it. He said it was probably an echo of a radio signal, a trick of the cave's unique acoustics. He packed up his equipment and went home to his wife and 2 children. He died of a brain aneurysm 2 weeks later. He was 41 years old, perfectly healthy, no warning. The university never published the study. The recordings were sealed. The cave was quietly added to a list of restricted sites, citing unstable rock formations and the danger of collapse. No official explanation was ever given. But the families of the victims know the truth. They know about the cave. They know about the singing. And they know that the deaths are not random. They are invitations. The cave calls, and those who hear their names must answer. The only way to avoid the fate is to never enter the cave in the first place. There is a theory about what the singing cave actually is. The Cherokee people who lived in this region for centuries had legends about a place they called the Echoing Dark, a place in the earth where the spirits of the dead gathered to call the living. They said the earth there was thin, like a membrane, and the voices of the dead could pass through. They said you should never listen to those voices, because if you heard your name, your spirit would begin to leave your body. It would follow the voice into the dark, and it would never find its way back. The singing cave is that place, and it is still there. The entrance has been covered with a steel grate, but it can be pried open. The passage is still navigable. The chamber is still waiting, and the voices are still singing. If you ever find yourself in Colbert County, Alabama, and you hear a whisper of music on the wind, turn around. Do not follow the sound. Do not crawl into the dark. Do not listen for your name. Because the cave does not just tell you about your funeral, it arranges it, and it has been arranging funerals for over 100 years. Don't let yours be the next. Sleep well.